Hello, good people, and welcome to Hillbilly Cat History. Karate Cadillacs. And today, we're going to finish up the story about how Ed Parker received a Cadillac from Elvis Presley. And then we're going to go into more stories about Ed Parker. But first, we're going to get back into the dojo with the song Crucible of a Warrior.
Born in the fire, Evansville flame, hammering Hank carved out his name. 16 and airborne boots in the dirt, jumping through walls, on baptized and hurt. Karate in Japan, fists like steel, champion of honor, deadly and real. Sensei, a warrior's no room for doubt. You wear the G or you train and come back. Your eyes a crucible, baby, not a showbiz belt. You bleed, you break, you feel a warrior's spell. Elvis hit the mat, but he rolls with a roll. Sneer in his soul, ready for war. It's burning, burning, burning through the pain. Crucible of a warrior, forging Hank's domain. 30 throws, not dances a fight. Bones to set, boards shattered on sight. Shudo elbow, fingertip flame. Every strike a prayer, every K a name. 6 weeks of fire, no cameras, no fame. Just sweat and bruises, no one played tame. Saw came in, fist like a stone, said put him down, break ribs if it's known. It's a crucible, baby, not a velvet crown. You fall, you crawl, but you don't stay down. Elvis hit the mat, but he rose with the roar. Sneer in his soul, ready for war. It's burning, burning, burning through the pain. Crucible of a warrior, forged in Hank's domain. All eyes watched the king that day. Would he crumble or would he stay? But Hank saw it, war in his eyes. Not a quitter, but a fighter who rise. From Hollywood lights to dojo dust, Elvis earned it not on fame but trust. No stunt, no script, just grit and bruise. Black belt truth, not a headline rule. It's a crucible, baby, not a stage or set. You earn every inch, every beat is sweat. Elvis hit the mat, but he rolls with a roar. Sneer in his soul, ready for war. It's burning, burning, burning through the pain. Crucible of a warrior. They burned through the fire, broke through the fear. The dojo of legends and kings stood clear. Crucible of a warrior. Elvis was here.
Thank you for gathering here at Hillbilly Cat History, where we remember together and listen for the echoes. And today we're going to hear more echoes from Ed Parker. Hi, Colleen. Thank you so much for coming. Appreciate seeing you here. And I want to give a shout out to Gun Britt, who left a message that she got caught off guard by the time change here in America. My guess is a lot of people that don't live in America were caught off guard, and even those who live here. But we fell back an hour today. Europe fell back a couple of weeks ago, so it's been a confusing period of time for us. But now we should be able to move forward, and everyone can get into the rhythm. This will be the new time. This is 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. And I'll do another show at 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. But today, let's get into Ed Parker's Cadillac. And Ed had been telling us that he was with Elvis in Las Vegas when Elvis got the idea that he was going to order Ed or buy Ed a brand new Cadillac, and they were going to put an order in right then at a nearby dealer and have the car brought over. But it was 10 p.m. at night. They called up the dealer, and the salesman was getting ready to go home, but he was willing to stick around a little bit longer. So he could try to complete that sale. And Elvis asked Ed, "What color of car do you want?" Now, Ed, he loved white cars. Other celebrities had bought him white cars. So he said white. Hi, Lorna. Hi, Jen. Thank you so much for coming. Appreciate seeing you here. And Ed says the order was placed then and there. The dealer said that he had a white Fleetwood Brougham d'Elegance on the showroom floor. That is a very fancy car for anyone. I'm not even sure I pronounced it correctly. But it's a Cadillac Fleetwood and a special kind. But Ed goes on. It was a 4-door Cadillac that was the most expensive model, just under the cost of a limousine. The salesman was then asked to drive the car or to have the car serviced and delivered immediately. Impossible, was the reply. Elvis then got on the phone. He identified himself. He said that if it was at all possible, he wanted the car delivered that night. At first, the salesman did not believe it was Elvis. Once he was convinced, he acceded to Elvis's request and promised that he would have the car delivered in my name at the side entrance of the hotel within the hour. So Elvis told Ed he was going to buy him a car and that it was going to make it there that night, and it looks like it's about to happen. Ed goes on. He says, Elvis sat back, winked at me, and said proudly, "Just taking care of business." Ed, I'm just taking care of business. When I want something, it has to be now. I wouldn't be happy to have it put off till tomorrow. You know how that goes. I find that statement from Elvis to be very revealing about Elvis's character. This is who Elvis was. It rings true to me, so we'll read it again. Elvis sits back, he winks at Ed, who he just bought this car, and he's pulled off getting it to the hotel that night after business. And he says proudly, "Just taking care of business, Ed, just taking care of business. When I want something, it has to be now. I wouldn't be happy to have it put off till tomorrow." You know how that goes. It sounds like maybe this is a trait that Elvis and Ed share, that they like to get stuff done right now. Ed says the car was delivered at 11:06 that evening. When we were informed that it was at the side entrance of the hotel, Elvis, Linda Thompson, Joe Esposito, Jerry Schilling, and I went down the elevator to see it. It was a beauty. The white exterior was offset by a gold vinyl top. Elvis then asked the salesman the cost of the car. I gulped. Joe Esposito immediately requested a 10% discount, since the car was purchased for cash. It was agreed. Joe made out the check. Elvis signed and handed it to the salesman. The salesman shook Elvis's hand and gave him the keys to the car. Elvis then turned to me, and he handed me the keys, and he said, "Here, Ed, please accept this car as a token of my love for you. Enjoy it in good health. Now, how about giving a country boy a lift in your new car?" First thing Elvis did when he gave Ed the car was he wanted to go for a ride. And there's a lot of people down there looking at this car. Elvis, Linda Thompson, Joe Esposito, Jerry Schilling, they all pile into the car. And Ed says, "I chauffeured the group around Las Vegas. We all laughed, and in the rear view mirror, I could see the look of pure pleasure on Elvis's face. From time to time, he would gently slap me on the back and tell me that I looked right at home behind the wheel. The happiness and surprise he had given me brought him joy." Ed recognized that in receiving the gift from Elvis, that's where Elvis took his joy, by seeing that Ed loved the gift that Elvis gave him. And Lorna says that you can hear Elvis saying that. And Jen says she would love to go car shopping with Elvis. Not because she'd want him to buy her a car, but so that you'd know you got a good deal. Well, in that case, I think you want to go shopping with Joe Esposito, because Elvis would pay above sticker price if Joe or Marty or somebody else wasn't there to see that he didn't. And he did pay over sticker price several times. In fact, there was a dealer they stopped doing business with because Joe did not feel that, and Vernon did not feel Elvis was getting a good deal from this guy. Let me bring up. So we have seen this G. And we know that it was at Jimmy Velvet's museum for a while. But it was supposedly Elvis's, although we don't know how Jimmy acquired it. And it's got the Kenpo karate symbol on it. That's Ed's symbol. And when Elvis got the 4th degree black belt, he received this sterling silver ring, I believe from Ed, that has the tiger and the great cat fighting, which is the Kenpo karate symbol. And Colleen's saying, didn't people jack up the prices because they knew Elvis had money? Well, they certainly did at the Circle G. And there was only like one guy that we know of that was selling horses to Elvis at a reasonable and market fair value. But everybody else, this guy said, was asking 10 times the market value. Same happened whenever he tried to buy a piece of property. And we had met Sherry and Beth, who are Ed's daughters. And they had told us about personal experiences. And Beth even told us about the last time she remembered seeing Elvis. So if you missed those stories, be sure to head back into the archive. You can go to the channel and look for the lives. And they're back there. One from yesterday, and then a whole bunch more from before. And here we can see Elvis and Ed together. Ed's the one in the background. Elvis is in front. But Elvis has an incredible smile on his face in this picture. He's tickled by something. They both got the standard 1970s long hair. Elvis has got some massive sideburns. But this is a full front face picture, so you can just see the sideburns framing his face. His cheekbones are very pronounced in this picture. He's wearing some piece of gold jewelry around his neck. It's fairly large. I think that might be the, and I don't know if I'm pronouncing this right, but the Ankh symbol. I think he had a symbol in gold on a pendant that he wore a lot. I think that might be it. And he's in a blue jacket, and he's got the collar turned up. Now, Ed has a red jacket on. He's got a Hawaiian shirt under it with a big collar, but he's wearing something red, some red jacket. I'm assuming that is a red Elvis in concert jacket. So this is probably somewhere that they're outside in public. I'm sure it's been cropped out of a much larger picture. Now, Ed he gets into talking about a period just before Elvis passed away. So this would have been sometime around 1976, late 76, and into 1977 that Ed's going to talk about in this statement, although he's making this statement at a later date, but he's reflecting on that time period. And Lorna is saying that she's not getting a picture, she's just getting the back screen. But Jen is saying that she can see the pendant, and it's a chai pendant. Okay, so I probably mislabeled it. Yeah, Lorna, I think you might need to refresh, because apparently Jen is able to see it. And there is a picture of Ed and Elvis on the screen right now. And there was a girl that was doing karate. So if you didn't see her moving, yeah, you probably need to refresh. What I found, and she's probably refreshing right now, it won't hear me, but what I have found is if you show up early for the live stream, YouTube will not always start the live stream for you. You sometimes have to refresh the page to get it to work. It's very irritating, but that's the platform that we're on. And I think Lorna's back. Good to see you back. So this period that Ed is talking about is after Elvis fired Red West, Sonny West, and Dave Hebler. Something happened. People will point to different events, but whatever the schism was between Red, Sonny, and Dave and Elvis, it was tremendous. It was Elvis universe shattering. You know, the ground broke open and they were on one side of this chasm and Elvis was on the other. It was mythical in proportion, and we don't know what it was. People guess about what it was, but all the things that they say, they're just not strong enough to tell us why Elvis determined that these men who had been protecting his very life and the life of his children, his child, and his family, why he suddenly felt they could no longer be trusted and had to go. Now, from their actions later, it's clear that they could not have been trusted further. But Ed's going to talk about this as a person who knew all of these people He's friends with all of them. Now there has been this split, much like a divorce in a family. And the mom has gone one way and the father has gone the other. And in a divorce, hopefully, although there's usually somebody to blame, right? There's somebody to blame. They're still good people, right? They're two good people. Something bad's happened. They've done bad things and they've split. And therefore, you don't want to make a choice between these two good people. And Ed believes all of these people are good people because that's been his experience with them. And here's what Ed says. He says, I was deeply moved when I heard later that Red was no longer employed by Elvis and was even more affected at the onset of all the controversy resulting from their breakup. I could not help feeling that Red, deep down, still really loved Elvis. I believe he got caught up in an emotional flare-up that got out of control. Even if I am wrong, I would like to think that this is what happened. The sad part of it all is that Elvis told me with tears in his eyes that regardless of the controversy of which he was painfully aware, he still loved Red. Ed tells us that when he hears about this split, he is emotionally, he has an emotional reaction about it. These are his friends, specifically Red and Elvis. And his two friends, something has happened and they can no longer be friends. But he doesn't know what it is that's been done. Now, when Ed says this, he actually makes these statements. This is after Elvis What Happened has been published. I assume that Ed has read this because in the beginning of Ed's book, he talks about other people publishing books. And he kind of makes fun of other people that have published books about Elvis. He doesn't specifically mention Red's book. But at the time that he heard that they had broken up, of course, the book wouldn't be out there. And he wouldn't even know that that book was getting ready to be out there. And he tries to give Red all of the benefit of the doubt that he can, because he remembers Red as an honorable person. So he tries to say that it's an emotional flare-up that got out of control. Now, this particular flare-up was way too big to be just an emotional flare-up. This was, because this took out 3 guys. This was gigantic, whatever it was. So it was definitely out of control, but it was more than a flare-up. But Ed says that he doesn't really know what it is, but even as he doesn't know what it is, he hopes it was this, because otherwise he's going to have to see Red as very dishonorable. And he doesn't want to do that, because he knows Red personally, and up to this point, that has not been Red. At least not in Ed's opinion. That's what I'm pulling from Ed's statement here. But then he tells us that Elvis told him personally, with tears in his eyes, that he still loved Red. So whatever it was that caused Elvis to banish these 3 from his kingdom, it wasn't that he stopped loving probably any of them. And Colleen says, I would think it was something big. If Elvis wanted to downsize, I would think it would be the newer guys and not Red or Sonny. Exactly. this was like Zeus fighting Apollo, right? Being cast out off the Mount Olympus, or like Lucifer being thrown out of heaven. This was a giant moment in the life of Elvis. It's completely hidden to us because they did not tell us in their book what it was. They ran all the way around it, but they never truly touched on it. And Elvis never told anybody. But it had to be something really, really big. It's not just that Elvis was getting sued and he was going to lose some money because he had these guys around. He would never have gotten rid of people over money. But let's take a look and see what else I have to show us. And here you can see a picture or a poster for a movie that starred Ed Parker. I believe this was the only movie that starred Ed Parker. Ed Parker was in several other movies, but this was his vehicle. And it was called Kill the Golden Goose. Not long after Elvis passed away, Ed starred in this movie, which was released in 1979. It's not the greatest movie in the world, so it probably didn't have the longest shoot. I'm imagining the shoot time was something similar to an Elvis movie, so it was probably shot late 78 or even in 79. Ed also plays himself as a mercenary in the 1979 action film Seven. Seven is also not a great movie. But I do happen to have a link where you can see Kill the Golden Goose. It's here on YouTube. I'm going to put it in the chat right now so that you can copy it out and watch it later if you like. But you will be able to see Ed Parker in a movie. It's after Elvis has passed away. And Jen says she's never heard of it and she was into karate movies. Well, this is your chance, Jen. You can get this under your watch list. I don't think you're going to walk away from it ecstatic that you have now seen the movie, but it is like a lot of those old karate movies. It's got its charm. Probably kind of a 2-star movie, I would say, out of 5. Now, I also happen to have a link where you can see the scene from 7 that Ed is in. I don't have a link for the whole movie. But once you see the scene, you'll probably be satisfied and not need to see the whole movie. So this is the link to that portion of 7. I'll probably end up putting these up as posts in the next few days as well. So you'll be able to come back and reference that. But if you want to copy it out of the chat now, don't click and go to it to leave the chat or anything. But if you want to copy it out to watch later, feel free. And Ed Parker said, "It's hard not to miss Elvis." Now, there was a portion of time where Elvis and Ed Parker fell out a little bit. I haven't really covered that. I'm not gonna cover it. We will cover that when we come to that period of time when it actually happens as we move through. Sooner or later, we'll have moved through the chronology of every bit of Elvis's life. It'll take a long time. But when we get to that portion, then we'll understand what happened better. We'll know who Ed was, because we've seen him now before we get there. But they did reconcile later, and As we've seen, after Red was gone, according to Ed, Elvis has confided in him that he still loved Red. So they must have been still good friends, even at the very end. And Lorna says that she loves karate films, especially Bruce Lee films. I like Bruce Lee films too. And I think I probably already said in this chat, but Bruce Lee was the next door neighbor when he lived in an apartment. He lived right next door to Burt Ward, who was Robin on Batman and Robin in 1966 Batman on TV. And they used to spar together. And then, of course, I think Burt mentioned Bruce to the producer on the Batman show, who was trying to start up a second show, and they ended up doing the Green Hornet. And they brought Bruce in. And I could be wrong about that. Bruce is definitely in the Batman show for that Green Hornet section, and then he goes off to do the Green Hornet series. I believe Burt helped get him into there. I don't know for sure. Bruce was kind of famous around the circles at that point for his amazing karate ability. But they did used to spar together, and Burt used to be incredibly athletic. But those are all different stories for probably a whole different kind of podcast. So Ed, like all of Elvis's friends, he received many gifts from Elvis. And we're going to take a look at some of those gifts. Here's another, this I think was the VHS cover for Kill the Golden Goose. I am sure that this movie, it was released just at the very beginning of VHS tapes. So when, it's probably like 1983, 1984 is when they really started to need VHS tapes, because there was like a lot of mom and pop stores that were renting VHS tapes. So this movie would probably have been like spectacular for that, because it was newish, because it was from 79. No one really had ever watched any movies at home before. And I'm sure they were able to put it onto these tapes pretty cheap, because they didn't have to pay a lot of overhead to get a hold of the movie. And you could see how long Ed's hair is in this particular movie. And there's a discussion that people love Jean-Claude Van Damme. But nobody likes Steven Seagal. Nobody brings up Steve. This is a watch that Elvis gave to Ed Parker. And that's really all the details I have on it. I believe it's gold. I believe it was digital, which would have been kind of cool because it was the 70s and the digital watches were new. My guess is the numbers would have been red, and it's possible you might have had to push the button in order to see them, because the batteries would have probably drained out really fast. They were really bad at battery technology back then. And Lorna says that she loves Steven Seagal too. I love him from the 90s. Like, he was really great in the 90s. But I did see something with him recently where he was showing someone, like in real life, how to do some different martial arts moves. And although he's gained quite a bit of weight and he's a much larger persona than he used to be. He's really quick. Like, he's still amazingly quick and very strong. And Jen says she loves Steve's movies too. And they were very entertaining, I thought. I like the plots and everything wrapped up at the end. They were just they were like the excellent action movies of the period. I find it very hard to find any movies that are made today that are anywhere near that good. This is a special ring that Elvis gave to Ed. I believe Ed has a story about it. Yes, Ed says, in March of 1974, we were in Beverly Hills visiting his doctor when Elvis decided to visit a jewelry store as well. He examined a few rings, necklaces, pins, and asked my opinion about some of them. He tried a few more rings on and then asked for a special ring he had ordered for himself. It was astounding. It featured 20 diamonds set in white platinum with the remaining portion of the ring in yellow gold. Holding the ring, you were struck by its bulk and weight and magnificence. He asked my opinion about his taste in jewelry. He said it was to be a present for himself. I commented that it was ruggedly masculine, a magnificent piece. He then asked me to try it on, and as I looked at him, I immediately recognized that unmistakable look in his eyes. Sure enough, when he discovered that the ring fit my left pinky finger, he announced that it was my birthday present from him. As we got into his limousine, I kept examining and admiring the ring. His features then broadened into another of his familiar facial expressions, one of contentment and happiness. So Ed was gifted this ring, which when I first look at it, it seems somewhat feminine. But I think that when we see it on the screen here, it's deceptive about the size that it is. That it's very large and very heavy, and this is a lot of diamonds that are on it. And when Ed says it fits his pinky finger, Ed has massive hands. So his pinky finger is like the width of like 3 normal person's fingers, right? Or maybe 4. He has bananas for fingers. So the fact that this ring fit on one of his fingers means it was fairly large. And he says Elvis tricked him by saying that it was going to be a present for himself, but it was really a present for Ed, and he had ordered it. So that makes you wonder, did Elvis order this ring for Ed, or did he order it for himself, and then in the moment, determine, I'm going to gift this to Ed instead? It was one or the other. And Colleen says that she used to watch Chinese theater on Sunday afternoon when she was a kid. They were bad karate movies where they dubbed them in English. I know the ones you're talking about. I have very specific memories of some of them. And a lot of them had very nonsensical plots, I think. And the pictures were always muddy. But back then, the television pictures were so poor anyway that you almost didn't notice. Now here's a bracelet. This is a solid gold bracelet. And it says Ed and Kahuna. One side says Ed, and the other says Kahuna. But this is raised lettering. This isn't engraved. These are special pieces. Elvis gave these to Ed as a gift. And Ed says that these bracelets were given to less than 13 of Elvis's close friends, including Ed. So Ed and 12 other people, according to Ed, received these bracelets, and that's it. This is another ring that Ed received as a gift from Elvis. And this ring is a 14-karat yellow gold nugget diamond with a black star sapphire. The black star sapphire is 3.5 carats, means it's large. And the round cut diamonds all together weigh about 0.5 carat. Looks like there's 7 of these diamonds, which 7 we've talked about before is a number that Elvis has linked to karate, and that it also has links to the 7 days of the week, the 7 colors of the rainbow. Elvis sees magic in the number 7. Elvis's personal number is 8, but Elvis sees magic in the number 7. And in the symbol that he and Kong Ree designed for karate, the patch that he wears when he trains with Kong Ree, it has 7 stars. Ed Parker says this 14-karat gold nugget-style ring with diamonds and a black star sapphire was a favorite of Elvis's, and he wore it many times, both on and off the stage. At the end of one of his tours, as he often did, he would pass out gifts to the members of his group. Elvis gave me this ring on one such occasion as a token of his appreciation and friendship. So this was a ring that was special to Elvis himself, and he gifted it to Ed. Elvis had an affinity for these black star sapphires. He loved black star sapphires, and I have a large number of examples of black star sapphires that he has given to other people. He bought a lot of these for himself, and he gave them away to a lot of people. This might have been his favorite stone, at least after he discovered it. Here you can see a side view of the same ring. And this just emphasizes how large this ring is. It is a great presence on your finger. In this picture, you can see Elvis wearing the ring. It's difficult, but you can see it. And here we can see something that's familiar to most people. That's the TCB medallion or pendant. Elvis had these made up, and he would gift them to his special friends Some people would tell you they only went to Memphis Mafia, but as we know, Ed is not a member of the Memphis Mafia. Ed is not an employee of Elvis's. Ed does come to work security, but he is not a bodyguard. He is a protective companion. Elvis gifts him with a TCB. And Lorna says that she can't watch dubbed films because they're annoying. They can be. And Colleen says that's a big ring. And it was. It was a very big ring. And Jim Tracy, who's one of the Tracy brothers, and he wrote a book, and you can read it for free. I've got a link to it out in the post for the channel. So if you go underneath this video and you look for the black circle that says Hillbilly Cat History, it's got a gold cat outline in it, and you click it, you'll go to the channel. You can select posts. You can scroll down just a few, because it was just a couple of days ago, and there'll be a post about Elvis and karate. And if you click it, and you've got to also hit read more. So it's kind of hidden in there. It's an Easter egg for the faithful and the loyal. Then you'll be able to find that, and there's a link, and it will take you to a website that Jim had set up that has the book on it. You can just read it right there. Or you could, copy out the text and paste it into a notepad if you could read it whenever you want. But it's available there for you to look at and for you to consume. Jim was a major force in karate in America. He had two brothers. All three of them took lessons from Ed and then went on to become, major phenomena of their own. But Jim says Parker was prospering, but he got into tax problems, and he owed the IRS $80,000. Parker couldn't pay it, and it would have ruined him financially. Elvis wrote a check to the IRS. So Jim says that one of the unseen gifts that Elvis gave to Ed Parker was $80,000 handed directly to the IRS to take care of back taxes. Now, I don't know how true this is. I don't know what the real number is. I mean, I think there's definitely truth that Parker may have been in some kind of tax issues. I think there's definitely truth that Elvis might have come in and saved Ed. He might have paid off whatever it was. I don't know if it was $80,000. That would have been nearly $700,000 plus today. It's a lot of money. But Ed might have owed it. I don't know. But Jim says that Elvis took care of it. That Elvis took care of his friend. So even if this one isn't true and it's a myth, because Jim doesn't have direct knowledge of what's going on in Ed's business. And so he would have had to have heard this either from Ed or from another source, which makes it even more dubious. But as part of the myth, this is a wonderful part of the myth. To think that Elvis saved his friend Ed Parker, his business, which Ed was using to feed his wonderful and beautiful family, who Elvis loved immensely. Now, the gift that Ed prized the most of all the many things that he received from Elvis, well, we're going to take a look at that right now. Elvis gave Ed one of the capes and the belt that he wore in the 1973 Aloha concert. Now, Ed's from Hawaii, so there's definitely a link between Ed, Hawaii, this concert. And you could see that Ed had this framed, and he put it on display in his house. During a concert with Ed in the audience, Elvis removed this cape because he was wearing it at that time, and he tossed it to Ed. And he told the crowd that this cape was going to his friend Ed Parker. And then after the concert, Elvis gifted Ed with the matching belt because he knew Ed would treasure the cape and the belt's connection to Hawaii. And for the rest of Ed's life, he kept this on display, as we see it here, in his home in Pasadena. And Michelle Dueno, who is a person who knew Ed, she says, I remember the first time I walked in and saw this hanging on the wall in the Parker's entryway. I was just speechless. Such a beautiful gift from such a generous soul to another truly good and generous man, Ed Parker. So Ed would put this up on his wall, and he would bring people into his house, and it was right there for them to see, right when they went in. And Lorna says that this is her favorite jumpsuit, the Aloha from Hawaii concert jumpsuit. And Jen says, this is amazing. And Janine Taysom, she's another person that knew Ed. She says, Ed Parker was my LDS Sunday school teacher on 3 different occasions in my youth. His hands were massive. Now, LDS is Latter-day Saints. That means the Mormons. Ed was Mormon. And Janine's telling us that on 3 different Sundays, he took over the Sunday school for the kids. Probably whoever would normally do that wasn't there, or maybe it was just his turn, but I feel like there was some issue with whoever was supposed to be there, and then Ed took over. And Janine goes on, and she says, my brother Craig took Kenpo karate lessons from him for a couple of years. I clearly remember seeing this framed, jeweled cape that Elvis gave Ed. It was magnificent. As you walked in their house, it was in the hallway on the left side. I saw it a couple of times because Ed would host parties for the youth in his home. Ed often talked about his wonderful friendship with Elvis. We got to learn about this larger-than-life, world-class celebrity on a down-to-earth personal level. Ed loved Elvis, and they had many spiritual discussions over the years. One of my favorite stories that I learned years later was when Ed and Elvis were once in Southern California, probably in the very early 70s. It was very early in the morning, and they had several hours of completely free time. It was around 5:30 a.m.-ish, and Elvis was kind of bored. So Ed suggested they drop by his son Edmund's seminary class in South Pasadena that probably started around 6 a.m. So they did. Imagine sitting in an LDS seminary class at that time of the morning and having Elvis Presley walk in unannounced and surprise everyone. Wow! The story goes that Elvis loved hearing the seminary lesson. Wish I knew what they studied that day. I also remember with great fondness Ed's beautiful wife, Leilani, and seeing their daughters and son grow up. So Janine has told us that a story that Ed's daughters told us about when Elvis stopped at the seminary school. That's the same day Ed got the Cadillac. And after they got done driving around in Vegas, they drove over to Pasadena. And they stopped at the seminary school, and Elvis went in and told the kids that he was proud of them because they got up early to come to this seminary before they even started real school for the day. And Janine, who wasn't there, but she heard this story at their house, or from those who knew them, and it stuck with her because she knew them personally. And she's verifying for us that, although she wasn't there for this story, that she certainly believes it, that that was the people, the kind of people that the Parkers were. And she tells us how good a person Ed was, and that he brought the neighborhood children, the youth of the community, into his home, where he had his own brood of children. I mean, he had 4 or 5. And that he would instruct all of these kids in morals and karate. And Lorna says that she'd heard the original cape was so heavy, Elvis couldn't use it, so a lighter one was made. Well, they had 2. I don't know if either of those 2 originals were lighter than the other, but they were too heavy. That part is correct. I think that they hindered his movement, and but they were incredible to see. So he used them well, but I don't think he liked to wear them all the time. And Colleen says she didn't even realize how big the cape was. Yeah, it was gigantic. Now, Ralph Castro, who knew Ed and was another one of his students, and he knew Elvis, he says, when I last talked to Ed Parker, he told me about his school burning down and the strong emotions he had for the movie fight scenes he was choreographing with one of his students. That was the last time I talked to him. And in the next episode, because we're not going to have time to finish it off today, we're going to say goodbye to Ed Parker, and we're going to wrap up our look at Elvis and karate. And then we'll be moving on to something new in the episode after that. We've come a long way. We've done a lot of episodes about karate. So I think we've learned a lot. I've learned a massive amount during this. So I'm going to be sorry to see us leave the dojo. But I've got some ideas about where we're going to go that I think everyone's going to be excited about. So we're going to go on to that in a couple of episodes. But for now, I'm going to leave you guys with a song. And this song's going to be Circle G Dreams. And until I see you all again, keep on taking care of business.
I drew a line in the dirt, said this land could be yours. 1 acre each, a house, a porch, a door. I saw the light in their eyes, like stars in the dust. But the paper stayed blank, and the dream gathered rust. I wasn't cash poor, I was rich in belief. trying to carve out a kingdom beneath the cotton clouds and the Mississippi sun. But every time I reached, the dream came undone. Don't you forget what I tried to make a home for the hearts I refused to forsake. They called it a whim, they called it a waste, but I saw a commune, not just empty space. Don't you forget me when the fences arise, when the ranch house fades and the silence lies. I gave you the downbeat, I gave you the land, but the kingdom never built still lives in my hand. They said zoning laws, they said legal red tape, but I saw a chapel in every landscape, a replica of Graceland, a circle of trust. But the curl was bust, and the dream turned to dust. I signed the checks, I made the calls, watched the trailers roll in like prayer stalls. But Vernon's face, tight as a gate, held back the flood of what I tried to create. Don't you forget what I tried to give, a place where my people could finally live. They called it a farm, they called it a phase, but I saw a future in the ranch's haze. Don't you forget me when the lights go out, when the house plans fade and the voices doubt. I gave you the downbeat, I gave you the land, but the kingdom never built still lives in my home. Still lives in my hand. Still lives in my hand.